let's scoot ahead to Wednesday. BK Häcken hosting PSG. I've gone back and forth on this one. I think I spun myself into multiple circles just trying to figure out where this tie kind of ends up, just because I think I've talked myself into every single scenario. Häcken's defense kind of smothers PSG's offensive attack and athleticism, just too much to handle for Häcken. Weather might get crazy. Who knows? I mean, I think I've looked under every single rock, in terms of trying to predict this matchup. Where's your head at with these two teams?
I'm 100% with you. I mean, there is a very, very wide range of outcomes for this matchup, I think, especially when you consider, like you mentioned, like the weather in Gothenburg could be unpredictable. It looked like, I was trying to look at some of the forecasts. It looked like they've been hitting like 40 degrees Fahrenheit most of these days, which for a dude who lives in Seattle is totally fine in my view. You can play that. That's pretty good football weather, if you ask me. I do have a feeling, based on the other Champions League matches that we've seen in Gothenburg, it's going to be a hostile environment for PSG. There's going to be they're going to be chanting. They're going to be loud. They're going to be getting on the refs. They're going to be doing very good football fandom stuff. So I'm excited to see that. I feel like the reason that you and I keep just kind of going in circles and circles on this one, this is the most styles makes fightsist fixture of the bunch. Like when you talk about PSG's like racing attack up and down the field, open play versus Häcken, rely on a great back four, rely on a great keeper, beat you up in the midfield, but then try to get the ball out to Yusaba and create some offense. I think it just creates 20 different ways the match could play out. 20 different ways the match could play out and end up being 1-0 either way, or 1-1. And then we get there and we're like, okay, yeah, we could have saw that coming, but there's such a range that I'm with you. I think it's okay for us to say, not too sure how this one's going to look.
Yeah, a lot of different roads lead to 1-0 or 1-1 for sure. I totally agree with you. Another fun wrinkle, you mentioned the crowd. The Damallsvenskan season doesn't start up until April 13th. So look out Norrköping, because this Häcken side is going to use this little stroll through the Champions League as a nice little preseason warm-up. And something tells me that without domestic league football in Gothenburg, that crowd's going to be pining for some action. And it's got to be so cool. A month before the season starts to have Champions League just going on, like Rust versus Rust. We always have a fun conversation around that. On the field, though, I think PSG is really going to test Jennifer Falk in spots. Despite the brilliance we've seen from Häcken defensively, I just think the PSG attack is so potent. And side note, you called out Tabitha Chewinga's sister, Temwa Chewinga, as a player to look out for in her debut for the Kansas City Current in the NWSL. And buddy, it took her mere seconds to impact the game and create a goal for her team. Unreal call from you. Take a victory lap.
Could I just say that in that NWSL preview, I mentioned I want to see Temwa Chewinga play because she's Tabitha Chewinga's sister. I failed to mention in her league season last year, I think Temwa Chewinga scored 60 goals. If I heard Leanne Sanderson correctly on that Kansas City Current broadcast. So I failed to mention, like, oh yeah, she's not just Tabitha's sister. She's a fucking incredible player on her own, but the speed in that family is something to behold. They're both road runners out there.
Born to play football 1,000%. Yeah, I mean, I think, also no learning curve, just right onto the pitch, right into fifth gear, right the ball right into the back of the net. Unbelievable to watch. Right. Let's slide back to Europe, though. Again, I think this PSG attack, we're going to have to see how patient they're able to stay. If Häcken is able to take away their breakaway opportunities and stay set, stay disciplined defensively, which we know that they can do. Watching them move as a unit defensively is just marvelous. You can see why they give teams so much trouble. They're so disciplined. They're not sort of scrambly. And I think they can make it tough on PSG, but at the same time, those race cars at PSG are just tough to wrangle for 90 plus minutes. And I think that's kind of what the match is going to come down to. You also touched on the weather pretty briefly. This one's got the potential to be one of those icy NFC North type matchups, currently projected to hover right around 38 degrees Fahrenheit with evening showers looming over the forecast. Could make it a real test for PSG.
I mean, for people enjoying this women's football podcast with us, especially talking about the UEFA Women's Champions League, this reference may be lost on some folks. I feel like Dino might appreciate this. So in American football, there's this famous fixture, this famous match between a team called the Oakland Raiders and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the weather was shitty. And the owner of the Oakland Raiders, a gentleman by the name of Al Davis. For any of our international football fans, just Google Al Davis and just read some stuff about Al Davis. An eccentric guy, we'll say, was complaining vigorously to the commissioner of the sport because he was accusing the Pittsburgh Steelers, who play in a cold weather climate, for basically icing down their pitch to slow down Oakland's attack, because Oakland's attack was built on speed and pace. And so I don't know, at BK HÄCKEN, are they like, oh, maybe it's not gonna rain in Gothberg tonight, but maybe we'll just sprinkle a little water on there, maybe just try to slow down these race cars. I don't know how much NFL history they've paid attention to, but it might be one strategy to try to slow them down.
Yeah, I can see it now. Just couple dudes on the roof of the just got the sprinkler, you got the hose kind of spraying down onto the field, keeping things nice and slick down there. Mm-hmm. This one's going to be one to watch. I just calling this the styles make fightiest fight of fights is just so on point, because this a lot like Benfica Lyon is going to come down to who's getting to play football their way. And I think one name that we haven't mentioned, Rosa Kafaji. Like, she slices up any defense. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, she's impossible to hold too, and she's doing it in the midfield, just creating chances for her wingers and her forwards, and she can score. So, I mean, I think just as quickly as PSG can get out ahead, I can see one of those Jennifer Fox stops turning into a Kafaji break. Maybe Yusuba gets on the end of one, and now we've got something going. A little bit of rain, not too much rain. I think it's still a little traumatized from USA Canada in the Gold Cup. Get me to Tuesday, get me to Wednesday. I cannot wait to take all these matches in.
Absolutely phenomenal. I'm just taking a quick look. PSG, they played Saint Etienne yesterday. We're recording this on Sunday. They played on Saturday. I mean, we haven't said her name yet. I know she's one of your absolute favorite players in the Champions League. Grace Gayorro scored 2 goals in their last match in their 5-0 victory over Saint Etienne. So with all those race cars that you have running up and down, you have Grace Gayorro whipping perfect passes to them. But don't focus too much on that, because she might just drill it in the back of the net too. So unbelievable talent on both sides here. Again, another absolute primetime matchup.
Yeah, last thing on this one, we talked about maybe Ajax's front three against Chelsea's back line being somewhat of a toss-up. I think this one is slides right into that co-main event where it's like, I want to see PSG's attackers against HÄCKEN's back line and fuck.
Absolutely.
Let's see who wins that battle, because that is going to be knockdown, drag out. I think when we do see something, it's going to feel pretty magical. It's going to take something big time to kind of break through in this one, and it could happen from either side.
Totally agree. Somebody's walking away, and maybe it's silly to call this before, but this is one of those matches where one fan base walks away and they could have a lasting memory about a player of you remember when that person did that in that big spot. This has every part of the recipe for that.
Yeah, 100%. Again, this one going down Wednesday, March 20th, 1:45 p.m. Eastern. Cannot wait for this one to kick off. And coming up later in this episode, we're going to talk about the other 3 matchups. And we might just sprinkle a little NWSL opening weekend talk at the end of this episode. So definitely stick around. Like if you liked, subscribe if you enjoyed talking women's football with your boys.
We might be older models, but we're a couple of race cars in the football podcasting industry, if you ask me. So let's just fucking hit the track and keep going.
I'm with that, 100%. Let's fucking go.
All right, I'll see you at the starting line.